I once crossed paths with a human sniper. Pray you never do. The first time Commander Zixathala heard about the human sniper, she dismissed it as another wild tale from the outer colonies. Her forearms clicked dismissively against the command console as her subordinate, Lieutenant Krelmos, delivered what seemed like an impossible report. "Commander, the entire Vorthak assault battalion has been neutralized," Krelmos announced, his voice trembling through his translator unit. 300 of our finest warriors eliminated in less than 6 standard hours. Zixthala's crimson eyes narrowed. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as unstoppable juggernauts. Standing nearly 4 meters tall with armored carapaces that could deflect plasma bolts, they had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single battle. The idea that they could be stopped, let alone eliminated entirely, seemed absurd. "What kind of weapon could possibly achieve such destruction?" she demanded. "Orbital bombardment? Chemical warfare?" Krelmos hesitated before responding. "According to our surveillance drones, it was a single human, armed with what appears to be a primitive projectile weapon." The bridge fell silent. Every member of Zixthala's crew turned to stare at the lieutenant. In their experience, humans were a relatively new species to galactic politics, young, inexperienced, and technologically inferior. Most galactic councils barely acknowledge their existence. "Impossible," Zixthala snapped. "Humans barely understand quantum mechanics. Their fastest ships can't even break the light barrier efficiently." "You're telling me one human with a primitive weapon eliminated an entire Vorthak battalion?" Krelmos activated the holographic display. Grainy surveillance footage began playing, showing the rocky terrain of Kepler 442b. The planet served as a strategic waypoint between 2 major trade routes, making it valuable real estate in the ongoing territorial disputes. The Vorthak battalion had landed with typical efficiency. Their massive forms moved across the landscape like living tanks, each warrior equipped with energy shields and plasma cannons capable of melting through starship hulls. They advanced in perfect formation toward the human research outpost, a small collection of prefabricated structures that housed maybe 50 personnel. For the first hour, everything proceeded normally. The Vorthak methodically destroyed defensive installations and began surrounding the human compound. Their leader, War Alpha Gorthun, was renowned for his tactical brilliance and had never lost a battle in over 200 campaigns. Then the killing began. The first Vorthak warrior simply collapsed. One moment he was advancing with his squad, the next he lay motionless on the ground. His squad mates didn't even notice initially. The sound that preceded his death was so faint that their audio sensors barely registered it. Only when they called for him to maintain formation did they realize something was wrong. By the time they reached his body, 2 more had fallen. The projectiles that killed them were so small and fast that they passed through the warrior's natural armor like it was paper. More disturbing still, each shot had been placed with surgical precision, striking vital organs that most species didn't even know the Vorthak possessed. War Alpha Gorthon immediately ordered defensive positions. His remaining warriors sought cover behind rocks and deployed portable barriers. For a few minutes, an eerie calm settled over the battlefield. Then the psychological warfare began. The shots came irregularly, sometimes minutes apart, sometimes in rapid succession. Each time, another Vorthak warrior would simply drop dead. The killings seemed random at first, but Gorthon soon realized there was a terrifying pattern. The human was targeting the most experienced warriors first, systematically dismantling the battalion's command structure. "Where are the shots coming from?" Gorthon demanded over the communication channels. His technical specialists frantically scanned the surrounding terrain. The planet's surface was riddled with caves, rocky outcroppings, and ancient canyon systems. Thermal scans revealed nothing. Energy signatures showed no unusual activity. Even their most advanced detection equipment couldn't locate the source of the attacks. "Sir, the projectiles seem to be coming from multiple directions," one technician reported. "But our sensors show no movement in those areas." Gorthon felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. In every previous battle, the enemy was visible, predictable. This was different. This was like fighting a ghost. The human wasn't just killing them, he was making them afraid. Every shadow became a potential threat. Every distant rock formation could hide death. The Vorthak warriors, who had charged into plasma storms without hesitation, now flinched at every sound. Hours passed. The battalion's numbers steadily dwindled. 50 warriors became 40, then 30, then 20. Each death was accompanied by that same faint sound, a sharp crack that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Gorthon tried everything. He ordered smoke screens to obscure visibility. The killing continued. He commanded his warriors to advance in random patterns. It made no difference. He even attempted to retreat, pulling his remaining forces back to their landing craft. 3 more died during the withdrawal. "This is impossible," he growled into his communicator. "No single warrior could accomplish this. There must be an entire army hidden in these rocks." But deep down, he knew better. The precision was too consistent. The timing too perfect. This wasn't the work of multiple shooters. It was one individual operating with an efficiency that defied understanding. As the sun began to set on Kepler 442b, only 12 Vorthak warriors remained alive. They had barricaded themselves behind their landing craft, using the ship's hull as protection. For the first time in hours, the shooting stopped. Gorthon dared to hope that perhaps the human had exhausted his ammunition or moved to a different position. He began planning an emergency extraction. If they could reach orbit, they could call for reinforcements or simply bombard the entire area from space. That's when the human made his presence known. A voice crackled across their communication channels, speaking in perfect Vorthak military dialect. "War Alpha Gorthon, I know you can hear me." The remaining warriors looked at each other in shock. How did a human know their language? How had he accessed their secure frequencies? "You have invaded human space without provocation," the voice continued. "You have destroyed civilian installations and threatened non-combatants. I am giving you one opportunity to surrender." Gorthon's fear transformed into rage. "You dare demand the surrender of Vorthak warriors? We are the conquerors of 17 systems. We do not yield to inferior species." There was a long pause before the human responded. When he spoke again, his voice carried an emotion that Gorthon couldn't identify. Something cold and final. "Then you have chosen to die." What happened next would be debated by military analysts for generations. In the span of 30 seconds, the remaining 12 Vorthak warriors were eliminated with mechanical precision. Each shot was perfectly placed, accounting for their armor, their positions, even their desperate attempts to find new cover. The human hadn't just been killing them, he had been studying them, learning their movement patterns, their tactical responses, their weaknesses. Every previous death had been preparation for this final demonstration of dominance. When the shooting finally stopped, Kepler 442b fell silent, except for the wind whistling through the canyon walls. Zixthala watched the surveillance footage with growing horror. The implications were staggering. If humans possessed this level of individual combat capability, then every assumption the galactic community had made about them was wrong. "Has there been any contact with this human?" she asked. Krelmos shook his head. "No, Commander. When our recovery teams arrived, they found only the Vorthak bodies. The human research station was completely undamaged. According to the survivors inside, they never even saw him leave." Zixthala's mind raced with possibilities. This couldn't be an isolated incident. If one human could accomplish this, what could a coordinated human military force achieve? More importantly, how many other primitive human capabilities had the galaxy catastrophically underestimated? "Send a priority message to the High Council," she ordered. "Classification level Omega. We need to completely reassess our intelligence regarding human military capabilities." As her crew hurried to carry out her orders, Zixthala couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The galaxy had viewed humans as newcomers, young, weak, and insignificant. But what if they had been hiding their true nature all along? What if the real question wasn't whether humans belonged among the galactic powers, but whether the galaxy was prepared for what humanity was truly capable of? The name of the human sniper was never learned. He had disappeared as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving behind only the evidence of his devastating efficiency. But word of what happened on Kepler 442b began to spread through underground channels, whispered among mercenaries and soldiers who dealt in the currency of fear. Soon, a new phrase would enter the galactic lexicon: "Pray you never cross paths with a human sniper," because those who did rarely lived to tell about it. The hunt begins. 3 months after the Kepler 442b incident, the galaxy had changed. What began as whispered rumors in mercenary cantinas had evolved into widespread fear among military commanders. The Galactic Defense Consortium issued new protocols specifically addressing human sniper threats, though most species still believed the reports were exaggerated. Admiral Thexandra of the crystalline hegemony was not among the skeptics. Standing nearly 3 meters tall with a body composed of living crystal formations, Thexandra had survived conflicts across 4 different star systems. Her tactical genius was legendary. She had never lost a strategic engagement. When the High Council tasked her with investigating human military capabilities, she accepted the mission with characteristic confidence. "The humans must be eliminated before they become a true threat," she announced to her assembled fleet commanders aboard the flagship, Eternal Radiance. "One sniper may have caught the Vorthak off guard, but we will not make the same mistake." Her plan was methodical and overwhelming. Rather than sending a single battalion like the Vorthak, she would deploy an entire armada. 50 warships carrying elite Crystal Guard units, warriors whose bodies could withstand direct plasma strikes and who could coordinate through quantum-linked consciousness. No single human, regardless of skill, could stand against such force. The target was Proxima Station, a human research facility orbiting a red dwarf star. Intelligence reports indicated it housed approximately 200 human personnel conducting xenobiological studies. More importantly, it was where the surviving researchers from Kepler 442b had been relocated after the attack. "If their sniper protects this facility, we will capture or kill him," Thexandra declared. "Then we will demonstrate to the galaxy that humans are not the threat they appear to be." The Armada departed crystal space with great fanfare. News networks across the galaxy covered the deployment, with most commentators predicting swift human defeat. The crystalline hegemony's military might was undisputed. Their warriors were virtually indestructible, their ships bristled with devastating weapons, and their tactical coordination was flawless. What they didn't know was that their every move was being watched. Deep in the outer asteroid belt, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos floated in her modified reconnaissance suit, monitoring the approaching fleet through instruments that the crystalline forces couldn't detect. Her equipment was a masterpiece of human engineering, combining stealth technology adapted from submarine warfare with targeting systems derived from artillery platforms. Maria wasn't the sniper from Kepler 442b. She was something potentially more dangerous, a human special forces operator with 30 years of experience in asymmetric warfare. While the galaxy debated whether one human sniper was a fluke, they had failed to consider that humanity might have many such individuals. "Control, this is Overwatch," she whispered into her encrypted communicator. "Target acquisition complete. Count 50 hostile vessels, estimated crew complement 15,000. They're not taking any chances." The response came from Captain Harrison aboard Proxima Station. "Copy that, Overwatch. Are you sure about this? That's an entire battle fleet." Maria smiled grimly inside her helmet. "Sir, with respect, they're making the same mistake everyone else makes. They think overwhelming force is the answer to a human problem." She began moving through the asteroid field with practiced ease, using gravitational fields and debris clouds to mask her presence. Her destination was a rocky planetoid approximately 6 kilometers from the projected fleet path, far enough to avoid detection, close enough for what she had planned. The crystalline fleet approached Proxima Station in perfect formation. Thexandra's tactical display showed every ship in precise alignment, their crystal hulls gleaming like jewels against the star field. She felt confident as they entered the system's outer perimeter. "Begin deployment of Crystal Guard units," she commanded. "I want boarding parties ready for immediate insertion." That's when the first ship died. The luminous Striker, a heavy cruiser positioned on the formation's left flank, simply exploded. There was no warning, no incoming missile signature, no energy discharge. One moment it was maintaining formation, the next it was expanding debris cloud. "Report!" Thexandra demanded. Her sensor operators frantically analyzed the destruction. "Admiral, we're detecting no weapons fire, no torpedo launches. The ship appears to have suffered catastrophic decompression from something that penetrated the hull." Before she could respond, a second ship erupted in brilliant flame, then a third. Each destruction followed the same pattern, a small, incredibly fast projectile punching through crystalline armor like it was glass, striking vital systems with impossible precision. "Impossible," Thexandra breathed. "Those projectiles would have to be traveling at significant percentages of light speed to penetrate our hulls." Her science officer, a nervous crystalline named Kethmorn, pulled up trajectory analysis. "Admiral, the projectiles appear to be originating from multiple locations throughout the asteroid field, but our scanners show no ships, no life signs, nothing." Thexandra felt a familiar sensation, the same uncertainty that had plagued War Alpha Gorthon on Kepler 442b. How could something they couldn't detect be systematically destroying her fleet? Maria Santos had spent 2 weeks preparing the asteroid field, turning it into the galaxy's most sophisticated sniper nest. Her weapon wasn't a traditional rifle, it was a railgun system that accelerated tungsten projectiles to 17% of light speed. Each shot required precise calculation, accounting for gravitational fields, stellar radiation, and target movement patterns. More importantly, she had prepared multiple firing positions connected by a network of concealed transit tubes. After each shot, she would relocate to a different asteroid, making it impossible for the enemy to track her position or predict where the next attack would originate. "Target their command ships," she muttered to herself, adjusting her targeting parameters. "Take away their coordination." Her next 3 shots were aimed at the fleet's communication arrays and sensor platforms. Without their quantum-linked coordination, the crystalline forces would be reduced to individual ships operating on limited information. The results were immediate. The precise formation began to break apart as ship commanders lost contact with fleet command. Some vessels tried to advance on Proxima Station, others attempted to retreat, and still others began firing randomly into the asteroid field. "Admiral, we're losing ships faster than we can count them," reported her tactical officer. 17 vessels destroyed, 12 more severely damaged. We can't maintain formation without communication links." Thexandra's crystal form pulsed with frustration and fear. This wasn't how battles were supposed to unfold. Where was the enemy fleet? Where were their warriors to fight? How could one location produce such devastating firepower? "All ships, emergency scatter pattern," she ordered through hardline communications. "Make for the edge of the system. We'll regroup and—" Her words were cut off as the eternal radiance shuddered under impact. Emergency alerts flooded the bridge as entire sections lost atmosphere. The ship's crystal matrix, which should have been able to absorb and distribute kinetic energy, had been shattered by something moving too fast to defend against. "Admiral, we've lost primary power," her engineering officer announced. "Hull integrity compromised on 7 decks. That projectile went completely through the ship." Maria had been saving the flagship for last. Her final shot was perfectly calculated, not to destroy the vessel, but to disable it while leaving the command crew alive. She wanted Admiral Thexandra to survive, to report what she had witnessed. As the crystalline fleet limped away from Proxima Station, Maria finally allowed herself to relax. 23 ships destroyed, 16 severely damaged, and not a single human casualty. The tactical lessons were clear for anyone willing to learn them. Humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't rely on superior numbers or advanced technology or natural physical advantages. Instead, they used their most dangerous weapons: creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to turn any environment into a battlefield. "Control, this is Overwatch," Maria reported. "Hostile fleet neutralized. Station security is confirmed." "Outstanding work, Sergeant," came the reply. "Though I have a feeling this is just the beginning." Maria nodded grimly as she began packing her equipment. Word of this engagement would spread even faster than the Kepler 442b incident. Soon, the galaxy would realize that the human sniper wasn't an anomaly. He was a representative sample. Back aboard the damaged Eternal Radiance, Admiral Thexandra stared at her tactical displays in shocked silence. Her invincible fleet had been devastated by an enemy she never saw, using tactics she didn't understand, from positions she couldn't detect. "Send a priority message to Crystal High Command," she finally ordered. "Classification: existential threat. The humans are not what we believe them to be." Her communication officer hesitated. "Admiral, what should we tell them?" Thexandra's crystal form dimmed as she contemplated the implications of what had just occurred. "Tell them that we have made a terrible mistake. We thought humans were a young, primitive species. We were wrong." She paused, watching the debris of her destroyed ships drift through space. "They're not primitive. They're something far more dangerous. They're innovators. And if we're not careful, they're going to teach the entire galaxy a very painful lesson about underestimating apparently inferior opponents." The message that reached Crystal High Command 3 days later would spark emergency sessions across every major galactic government. The age of assuming human inferiority was ending, replaced by a growing realization that humanity possessed capabilities that traditional military thinking couldn't account for. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, other human snipers were beginning to receive new orders. The Human Doctrine. 6 months after the Proxima Station incident, the Galactic Council convened its first emergency session in over 3 centuries. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the massive crystal amphitheater orbiting Centauri Prime. Their discussions focused on a single terrifying question: what were humans truly capable of? Chancellor Vexus Torin of the Hegemony Alliance called the session to order with obvious reluctance. His 8-meter serpentine form coiled around the central speaking platform as he addressed the assembled delegates. "Fellow councilors, we face an unprecedented situation. 2 separate military engagements have demonstrated that human combat capabilities exceed all previous assessments. We must determine whether humanity represents an existential threat to galactic stability." The debates that followed were heated and desperate. Admiral Thexandra's testimony had shaken the military establishment to its core. Her description of fighting an invisible enemy who could destroy capital ships with primitive projectile weapons seemed impossible, yet the wreckage of her fleet provided undeniable evidence. Representative Quendar of the Mollusk Confederacy pounded his tentacles against his speaking podium. "This is madness. We're talking about bipedal mammals with no natural weapons, no armor, no advanced technology. How can they possibly threaten civilizations that have mastered space travel for millennia?" Because they think differently, interrupted Dr. Kethamira, the galaxy's leading xenopsychologist. Her insectoid form clicked nervously as she accessed her research files. I've been studying human behavioral patterns since the first contact protocols were established. They don't follow standard evolutionary combat development. She activated a holographic display showing comparative analysis charts. Most species develop military tactics based on their physical advantages. Vorthak use their size and armor for direct assault. Crystalline forces rely on their near invulnerability for frontal engagements. Mollusk forces use numerical superiority and coordinated swarm attacks. The display shifted to show human historical records. Humans developed warfare based on overcoming superior opponents. Their entire military philosophy is built around defeating enemies who are stronger, faster, or better equipped. They call it asymmetric warfare. Chancellor Vextorin's eyes narrowed. Explain. Where other species see impossible odds, humans see tactical opportunities, Dr. Kethamira continued. They've spent their entire evolutionary history fighting predators larger than themselves, surviving in environments that should have killed them, and defeating opponents through intelligence rather than strength. She highlighted specific examples from human history. They've developed concepts like guerrilla warfare, where small units defeat large armies through mobility and terrain advantage. They practice sniping, where individual warriors eliminate high-value targets from extreme range. They understand psychological warfare, using fear and uncertainty as weapons more effective than any energy cannon. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Every major galactic military was built around conventional thinking. Deploy superior forces, engage in direct combat, achieve victory through technological or numerical advantage. Humans had evolved beyond such limitations. Admiral Thexandra stood to address the council. Her crystal form still bore scars from the Proxima Station engagement. Honorable delegates, I must share additional intelligence that our forces have gathered since my fleet's encounter. She activated a new display showing surveillance data from across the galaxy. In the past 6 months, 17 separate military engagements have occurred involving human personnel. In every case, conventional forces have been defeated by tactics we don't understand, using methods we can't predict. The evidence was overwhelming. Human merchant vessels had fought off pirate fleets 10 times their size, using improvised weapons and creative tactics. Human explorers had survived hostile first contact scenarios by turning alien psychology against attackers. Most disturbing of all, human military advisors had begun appearing in conflict zones throughout the galaxy, teaching other species these revolutionary combat methods. They're not just fighting us, Thexandra concluded. They're changing how warfare itself works. Species that ally with humans are becoming exponentially more dangerous. Traditional military thinking is becoming obsolete. The debate shifted to potential solutions. Some delegates called for preemptive strikes against human space before they could spread their knowledge further. Others suggested diplomatic approaches, hoping to contain human influence through treaties and agreements. A few radical voices even proposed studying human methods to improve their own military capabilities. Chancellor Vextorin listened to every argument before calling for silence. There is one more matter we must address. We have received a request from humanity to address this council directly. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. No species had ever been permitted to address the Galactic Council without first achieving member status, a process that typically required centuries of evaluation. They claim to have important information regarding our security concerns, Vextorin continued. Information that will clarify their intentions and capabilities. After heated debate, the Council voted to permit human representation. The decision was motivated more by curiosity than diplomacy. Every delegate wanted to understand the species that had so thoroughly disrupted galactic military thinking. General Patricia Morgan entered the chamber 3 days later with only a small security escort. Her appearance was unremarkable by galactic standards. A middle-aged human female in a simple military uniform. She carried no visible weapons, made no threatening gestures, and spoke in measured, professional tones. What she revealed changed everything. Honorable delegates, I am General Morgan, Commanding Officer of Terran Strategic Operations. I'm here to address your concerns about human military capabilities and to prevent what appears to be an escalating series of misunderstandings. She activated her own holographic display, showing detailed tactical analyses of every engagement the Council had discussed. First, let me clarify something important. The individuals you've encountered, the sniper on Kepler 442b, the operator at Proxima Station, they are not representative of standard human military capability. The chamber buzzed with confusion. If these individuals weren't typical, what was the baseline? They represent our elite Special Operations Forces, General Morgan continued. These are individuals selected from approximately 1 in 10,000 candidates, trained for decades in specialized warfare techniques, and deployed only in the most critical situations. She paused to let this information sink in. However, their methods and philosophy reflect standard human military doctrine. Every human soldier, from basic infantry to fleet commanders, is trained in the principles you've witnessed: asymmetric thinking, tactical creativity, and the ability to overcome superior opponents through intelligence and preparation. Admiral Thex Andra leaned forward. Are you saying that all human military personnel possess these capabilities? To varying degrees, yes, General Morgan replied. What you call impossible tactics, we call standard operating procedure. What you see as supernatural abilities, we consider basic military skills. She shifted her display to show human military organization. The individuals who defeated your forces were not anomalies. They were examples of what human military training produces when applied at the highest levels. The implications were staggering. If elite human operators could single-handedly defeat entire battalions, what could coordinated human military units accomplish? If individual humans were this dangerous, what about human fleets, human armies, human strategic planning? Why are you telling us this? Demanded Representative Quendar. Surely revealing your capabilities undermines any tactical advantage. General Morgan smiled, an expression that several delegates found oddly unsettling. Because concealing our capabilities has led to unnecessary conflicts. Species keep challenging us because they believe we're weak. They attack our personnel, threaten our installations, and endanger our civilians based on false assumptions about human limitations. She activated a final display showing the true scope of human military presence throughout the galaxy. We currently have approximately 50,000 military personnel deployed across 17 star systems. Most are operating in advisory roles, training local defense forces, or conducting peacekeeping operations. However, all are capable of the tactical innovations you've witnessed. The revelation that humans had been operating throughout the galaxy largely undetected sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. How had they failed to notice such an extensive presence? We prefer peaceful solutions to conflict, General Morgan continued, but we will defend ourselves and our allies using whatever methods are necessary. The encounters you've experienced represent minimal applications of human military capability, used only when diplomatic solutions were not possible. Chancellor Vexitorin struggled to process the implications. What are your intentions regarding galactic security? We seek partnership, not conquest, General Morgan replied. But we will not tolerate aggression against human personnel or installations. We've shared this information to prevent future misunderstandings that could lead to larger conflicts. She deactivated her displays and faced the Council directly. Honorable delegates, you have a choice. You can continue to view humans as a threat and engage in costly military confrontations that you cannot win. Or you can recognize us as potential allies who bring unique capabilities to collective galactic security. The chamber remained silent for several minutes as delegates absorbed what they had learned. The galaxy's understanding of warfare had been fundamentally challenged. Traditional assumptions about military power, tactical doctrine, and strategic planning had been proven obsolete by a species most had dismissed as primitive. Finally, Chancellor Vexitorin spoke. What would partnership with humanity entail? Mutual defense agreements, shared intelligence, and joint training programs, General Morgan replied. We can teach allied species to defend themselves more effectively while learning from your technological and scientific advances. The vote that followed was close, but decisive. The Galactic Council officially recognized humanity as a strategic partner rather than a potential threat. Defense cooperation agreements were signed within weeks, establishing joint training facilities and shared intelligence networks. More importantly, a new understanding emerged about the nature of military power. Strength wasn't just about technology or numbers or natural advantages. Sometimes, the most dangerous opponents were those who had learned to think differently about warfare itself. The human sniper from Kepler 442b became a legend throughout the galaxy, not as a terrifying enemy, but as the first example of what human military partnership could offer. Species that had once feared human capabilities now sought to learn from them. And in classified facilities throughout human space, new generations of special operations personnel continued their training, ready to defend humanity's growing place in the galactic community, using methods that their opponents still didn't fully understand. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history overcoming impossible odds. Because when such a species finally reached the stars, they brought with them weapons more dangerous than any technology, experience, creativity, and the unshakable belief that any problem could be solved with sufficient intelligence and determination.